Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome to another edition of the Steel. Oh my goodness, I do so many podcasts, I forgot which one I'm doing here. It's the Steelers Q&A tonight, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry that we are running a little behind. We have a special guest with us tonight. We have actually had him on recently, but he's back, and we are going to chat Steelers football today with my good man, Dave Schofield. Dave, how you doing tonight?
I don't know that I'm a special guest. I'm just here.
Well, you're one of the big three, right? You're Jeff, Dave, and Brian are the big three. Everybody talks
okay.
about. So,
all right. Well, then, all right. I will represent the big three the best of my ability.
Always a special guest, Dave. Whenever you can join the podcast, I want to apologize in advance to listeners who might hear my voice a little grudgy today. I don't know how grungy is what I should say, because I'm losing my voice a little bit, but hey, Dave's here to help round this out and get us where we need to go. We're very excited to talk about the Steelers. There's a lot to talk about. The draft coming up, all the Brandon Aiyuk rumors taking on another life in and of themselves. So be sure to put your questions here in the comment section, and we will get to those. But Dave, how do you feel about this Brandon Aiyuk situation? Is this something you expect to get done potentially, or is this something that it's just wait and see for you still?
Yeah, I'm more of a wait and see. I don't like giving up draft capital and a large contract. I would prefer one or the other. Yet somehow the Steelers managed to, with Russell Wilson, do neither. And with Justin Fields, they gave up little. It was little with both of them. But with someone like Aiyuk, you're looking at a really big contract coming his way. As well as whatever it would take to acquire him. The contract wouldn't be as much of one that I'd stumble over, because I mean, they were paying Diontae Johnson. Now they're not paying Diontae Johnson. You could get the first year for cheaper. The bigger thing that I would say is if the Steelers thought that they would take a wide receiver, I don't know, I'll throw out a random place. Let's say they thought they might select a receiver in the second round. If they gave up their second round pick for Aiyuk, I'm okay with that. Now, if the Steelers thought, well, we don't know that we'll draft anyone ahead before the third round, and they have to give up their first round pick, to me, that's a little bit steep based on just how things are playing out at this time. So it's one of those things that if they do it, I'm fine with it. I have a feeling the way things have been going is they haven't had to give up as much as what I thought they would whenever they acquire someone. But I also realize that they haven't been getting as much as what I would hope when they trade away somebody. So it's kind of a trade-off there if they were to do it. With Jeff getting the inside information that the Steelers are looking into it, it's not like it's something that's dead in the water. Even though the report of Aiyuk requesting a trade, his agent denied it, said, they need better sources. That still doesn't mean that the Steelers weren't interested in talking about it. All those things could be true. The only question is, will anything come of it? There's a difference between saying nope, not going there, and hey, they're looking into it. It just still doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Yeah, and agents can say whatever they want. Who knows what actually went down? We'll see as far as requesting a trade, but you don't even have to necessarily say, hey, I'd like to be traded, to make it known that being traded would not be a problem to you as well.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be those words specifically, but I think he's definitely in the Steelers' sights if they could bring him in. And hey, maybe it evens it out. You got Russell Wilson for neither high draft capital or high price tag. So, you can do both for one player if you need to get him in the building. That makes a lot of sense to me. So, and yes, especially if you're talking about drafting a receiver with your second round pick, if you can give that to the 49ers for Aiyuk and get him in the building, that to me makes a ton of sense. Let me propose one to you here, Dave.
I was going to propose another to you, but I want to hear yours first.
Yeah. Yep. So here's mine. The Steelers send pick 20 and 51 for Brandon Aiyuk, okay? Mm-hmm. But they get the Niners pick 31 back, and a 5th round pick, which they don't have currently. What do you think?
That's really close to what I
Okay.
was going to say. I actually really like that 2nd round pick if they're going to trade back in the 1st. What I was going to suggest to you was I was going to say they swap 1st round picks and
Yeah.
the Steelers give up a 3rd.
Okay. Yeah.
One of their 2/3.
Yeah, that would make
would you
sense
do
too.
that one? I
Oh,
would like that
100%.
one a little
Yeah.
bit better than giving up the 2nd, even though you gain another pick back. To
Yeah.
me, in this draft, I would much rather have more day 1 and day 2 picks than than everything overall.
Yeah.
So to me, if you're rather than go 1-3-3, if you could still go 1-2-3-3, or sorry, 1-2-3, I'd still be better than that rather than gaining that 5th rounder.
Yeah, I agree there. Corey Eckenroth, who is now a part of our staff here at the Steel Curtain Network, says, Betts, I like that, especially if they can get Barton. If they get Barton at pick 20, you get Ayuk. Or sorry, if you get Barton at 31 in this scenario, I think that would be incredible value based on where he's seems to be rising up draft boards. And then you have Ayuk as basically your 2nd round pick, or maybe your 3rd round pick if you are able to win in that, or win that type of value in your trade. Yeah, it makes sense. The Steelers can move back. They're not gaining any picks by doing so, but they're gaining a really good player. So that could be something that they that they keep in mind. Let's bring up a question here from Danny Owens Jr. That's very interesting, Dave. Have the Steelers ever picked last in the draft and gotten Mr. Irrelevant? I have seen. Yeah, I was going to say I've seen a couple different things.
But I don't ask me
what
what year or who it was. But I know that they have.
So, pre-1994, I guess, is what this one's going off of in the Mr. Irrelevant Wikipedia page. So I'm not going to vouch for its truth, but it says Tyrone McGriff with the last pick in the 12th round of the 1980 draft. The Steelers selected McGriff, and he was perhaps the most successful Mr. Irrelevant from the pre-1994 era. I see that one, and I also saw an article that said that they selected Kelvin Kirk with the last pick of the 1976 NFL draft as well. So, but this site says that's the only one, and then Wikipedia says that's the only one for the Steelers. So I don't know if it was both or either.
It's not. It was before. Really, where you need to go to is before they gave compensatory picks. Yeah. So as long as you're looking pre-compensatory picks, you're looking at a team who won the Super Bowl. They would hold the last pick unless they traded it away. So yeah, the Steelers made, I assume it's the last of the draft, pick number 333 in round 12 in 1980 was Tyrone McGriff. And you said the other one was what, 75? In 75.
76.
It's
76 draft.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
76, because it was after the 75 season. Yes. Right. Was in round 17, pick 487, that Kelvin Kirk pick. Yeah. So I've heard that they've done it before. I was thinking the 1981, but didn't know who it was. But other than that, you're talking about, once the compensatory formula and everything came into play, where they had compensatory picks at the end of round 7, that took it away from being the team that won the Super Bowl.
Right. It messed everything up. It just totally messed everything up, Dave. It's not predictable anymore. You never know.
Yeah. No. And that was sometime, because I remember the Steelers' first compensatory draft pick was kicker Cole Ford. And that was in the 90s, 96 or 97, I'm thinking.
Who did they lose to pick that up?
I don't remember. I knew it at one point. I did. But no, okay, sorry, 95. 95, they had kicker Cole Ford. They had a Smith draft pick. I think that was their first compensatory draft pick when I did some research on it a couple years ago. That's the thing. Sure. You do all this research, you get all this information, and when only 90% of it sticks, then you don't get every detail.
Right. And the question that'll come up 10 years down the road is the one that, you only got. It's part of the 10% that you forget.
Yes.
That's just how it goes. Let's see here. Okay. going back to Brandon Ayuk a little bit here, Matt Smith asked, would be smart to wait till after the draft to trade for Ayuk. I don't know if that changes what the Steelers could do to get him, because obviously the draft is done. You don't have any picks from this year to wield in a trade for him.
Yeah.
So that would make things a little more difficult. But do you have any thoughts on that type of scenario?
Well, especially if you're talking right after the draft. When you trade within the draft, you're talking about well, let's look at Isaiah Loudermilk as the example. When the Steelers just traded they didn't trade up, they didn't trade back, they just traded to gain another pick. To gain a 5th round pick, you gave up a 4th round pick of the next year. Basically, you're talking about 1 pick higher. So in order to give what the value of the Steelers' 2nd round pick would be from this year, it would have to be next year's 1st round pick. And because there's a lot of unknowns with that as well.
Right.
So I don't know if that makes sense. I would say I wouldn't be shocked. What if it's part of a trade during the draft? What if it is part of a trade down situation? I mean, it could happen, but like I said, the Steelers have already shocked me with the number of things that they've done this season. Like, I mean, the Russell Wilson thing wasn't super shocking. I think the Kenny Pickett trade caught me the most off guard. And then once that happened, I'm like, well, Justin Fields is back. And then it happened. So I wasn't shocked at that. So I would say out of all those, trading away Kenny Pickett, and trading Deontay Johnson was pretty surprising as well.
Sure.
If you had to put those in order. So I don't know. I don't think it would shock me maybe as much as especially the picker of Deontay Johnson, but I'm also not banking on it. It would be a pleasant surprise to have a player of that caliber, but also what does it take to actually get a player like that?
Right. And I mean, pursuing it tells me that the Steelers think that they're pretty close to competing, especially in the AFC North. Do you feel that they're an AFC North championship caliber team if they get an Ayuk, or even before that?
Well, on paper, but games aren't played on paper. They're played inside TV sets. They, sorry, which Sports Center anchor did I rip that off of?
Who knows?
I don't know. Was that Kenny Mayne or Dan Patrick? One of those said that was one of their lines.
That's a good one. I like that.
Back in the day. Just because you acquire the talent doesn't mean it fits together. All you have to do is look north and slightly west of Pittsburgh at the mistake by the lake. And how many times in the last, I don't know, 5 to 8 or whatever seasons, they won the offseason and acquired all this talent, but it didn't all come together. So just getting the talent doesn't mean that it all comes together, because yes, you need talent. Honestly, give me a team that's playing well together over one that has all the superstars any day of the week, because there's something to be said about that. So it really does have to all come together, and we're not going to know about that for a while. It could sound great, but then we talk about everything the Steelers could do, and we end up looking like ridiculous Browns fans.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, don't quit winning the offseason, Steeler Nation. Let's win in season. One thing nobody's talking about really is the Steelers' schedule, which is shaping up to be much more difficult than last year's schedule. As it sits right now, based on Vegas win totals, they have the toughest projected schedule in the league. And I think that plays into this as well. You don't have as it stands right now, you don't have those games where you can sit there and say, well, they're probably going to be favored in this many, and if they can beat a couple teams that they're not going to be favored against, that they probably have a 10-win record. That's going to be a little bit more difficult to kind of shake out before the season goes. But the schedule is a big part of this, Dave, and nobody's talking about it.
Well, let me ask you this question. That information that came about them having the hardest schedule, was that based on 2023 wins, or was that based off of 2024 Vegas projections?
Yeah, 2024 projected Vegas win totals. Yeah.
And the thing is, neither of them are an exact science. I would much rather do the last year's wins, because you at least have an idea of what there's a lot of turnover and everything now, and a team that's great could be terrible or vice versa. But just because Vegas projects you to win games doesn't mean that you do.
Yeah.
There's plenty of teams that make the playoffs every year that weren't projected to have a winning record. The Steelers have hit their over 3 or 4 years in a row now.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
and
they're going to do it again.
Yeah. Every time you look at it, to me, I like when you really get into the strength of schedule is when the season's about halfway through.
Yeah.
And you got about half of it to go. And you can look at what teams are actually doing that year. So I say bring on a tough schedule, because if you really want to win and win in the postseason, which that's what it's all about for Steelers fans, so many have told me that that's really all that matters, then you need to be, fire tested in order to be able to have more success there.
Well, and remind me, Dave, I think I'm right about this. I think it's in the America's Game film about the Steelers 2008 season that was to that point the most difficult schedule in NFL history. That they traversed and went 12-4 and won a Super Bowl.
That was actually based off how teams finished that year, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
I'm not. You could be correct there. I'm not totally sure. I have not heard that before. That is interesting, though.
I'll have to go back and watch the NFL Films show that they put out about the Super Bowl champion every year. The America's Game one for that, because I think that the narrator says that at some point in that documentary. All I know is it was projected to be the hardest schedule in the league, and it turned out to be that. I think they played almost every playoff team in the AFC that season. So it was very tough year for them. So yeah, I think iron sharpens iron. Obviously, you play the better teams, you come out with a good record, you can feel pretty good about what you can do in the playoffs. Let's go ahead and take our break here, and then when we come back, we'll answer more questions. There's plenty to get to. The Steelers Sunday night Q&A. We'll be right back for our audio-only listeners. And we're back here on the Steelers Sunday night Q&A. Dave Schofield, Jeremy Betts here with you, talking all things Pittsburgh Steelers, answering your questions. If you haven't checked out the live YouTube X, I think it's even on Facebook, Dave, where we put this out live. You can submit your questions and we can get to those. So if you haven't tuned into this live, go ahead and check that out. And if you do miss it, you can always get it wherever you get your podcasts later on. Just search Steel Curtain Network and you'll find it. Let's get to a question from Corey Eckenroth. Top 30 visit article coming out next couple of days. That's great. Be sure to check that out, fans and listeners. One thing that Corey says he noticed is that there is a glut of defensive tackles the Steelers met with. Not much talk about it, though. Thoughts, guys? I think defensive tackle is pretty high up on the Steelers' internal board of needs, but I would want to see what you say, Dave, on that based on some of the other needs they have.
Well, there's a lot of things that could change. We talked about trades. We talked about things of that nature. Do the Steelers, will they have the picks that they're scheduled to have? I would say I would be surprised if they take a defensive tackle in the first round. I'm not saying that they can't. I'm not saying that they won't. That's one of those positions that would surprise me. I'm pretty much kind of locked into 4 different positions, and one of them I don't really want in the first round.
Center?
And defensive tackle was not one of them. What's that?
Center?
No, it's not center. It's not center. It's wide
Corner.
receiver.
Oh, wide receiver. Okay.
Oh, no, it's wide receiver. I would prefer to not have a first round wide receiver. Because I had an article on Saturday at the website that said, everyone wants to get cute. Oh, well, you're picking 20, but this player's really about 25. The Steelers need to trade down. I'm like, if that's the guy you want, just friggin' take him. Take him. You know who did that last year? I said this on Thursday night. Jeff and I were talking about this. The Lions did that last year. They took the guys they wanted, even though they drafted them ahead of where most people had them projected. 3 of their first 4 picks were all drafted well ahead, especially the Jack Campbell pick. Now, then they got Brian Branch as kind of a steal as their 4th pick. They had 2 picks in each of the first 2 rounds. All 4 of those guys made the all-rookie team, and 2 of them made the Pro Bowl. So guess what? you might not win the draft grades afterwards, but if you get the guy you want and you don't feel like you should trade down, you don't have enough players that you want between where you're picking and everything else. If there's a center that you want and you think you're not going to get him at 51, take him at 20. I'm fine with that. But make sure it's the guy you want. Don't pull an Artie Burns. Don't pull an Artie Burns where you just are reeling and then take something. So yes. So to me, I really don't want a wide receiver. Let's get back to defensive tackle. Sorry, I got off on a tangent.
Yeah.
So I think defensive tackle is on the table in day two at some point. Doesn't mean that they will, but they could. And I think they're doing their due diligence to see if it's worth their while to do so.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there's several guys that make the list of intriguing options. And if there's one thing we know about the Steelers, Dave, is that they love to build up front on defense. That's where it starts for the Steelers. And so I would assume that they recognize Cam Hayward's age, injury history now, after having missed a good chunk of last year. And the fact that Larry Ogunjobi is going into the last year of his contract. And you've got Keanu Benton, who's obviously on the rise and a guy that they expect big things out of. But if you're looking towards the future a little bit, I think a third-round pick on a defensive tackle makes a lot of sense, especially when you consider the guys that could still be there, maybe a Michael Hall Jr. or a Mason Smith, something like that, that kind of fits that mold of a pass rush upside defensive tackle with length. That's kind of their area. So maybe they go that route.
On the flip side, I'm 100% fine if they don't take a defensive tackle at all in this draft.
True. Yeah.
I mean,
there's other ways to address it.
Yeah. If there's the guy there that you want and you think that that's something, because remember, it hasn't been as much because of everything going on. The Steelers typically draft for their needs the next year. They have players coming to the end of their contract. What are they going to need next year is generally how they had done that. Last year under Omar Khan, not so much. Well, they obviously didn't do it in 2021 because that was just, they couldn't do anything in free agency. Then last year it didn't feel that way. So I don't know if that's still their philosophy or not, that hey, look at what they're really going to need next year and draft it this year, because that's kind of what they do. That's why I kind of think, defensive tackle could be on the table if they are taking that kind of philosophy. But if they're not, I could also see that they're like, we don't have the luxury of that. We have too many things we still need this year. So either way.
Yeah. I agree. It seems to me like that would have to present the value that they would like at the pick, like you're talking about, for them to take one over, say, a corner or a wide receiver, or an offensive tackle on day two. But who knows? We'll see how it plays out. And that's the great thing about this time of year. It's all speculation until a little under 2 weeks, Dave, and we'll be talking about who the Steelers actually pick. Let's get to a question about that. Justin Benjamin says, who do you guys think will be the first round pick? I'll throw one out there and then toss it to you, Dave. I think the Steelers' first round pick will be Talisa Fuaga. I'm going to say that they are going to make a play to get Fuaga in the building, and that he is the top player on their big board. So I would say that they try to go get him. Okay.
I have to ask this question, even though I've covered both of these guys in my Mock Draft Monday articles. Which I can say this really bad. Which effing tackle is that? The tackle whose last name starts with F. He's the one from
Oregon State.
Oregon State. Yes. He's a nasty right tackle. Oh, if he's there, or if they could get him, I see them getting him. I just don't know. I have a feeling he's going to be valued more than what other people let on. Kind of like a Darnell Wright last year.
Yeah, could be.
That's the thing with him, because then the other one is the other F tackle. That's Washington.
Yeah,
I can't get their names right. Yeah, Patanu. Now, is he a guy that they could even that has position flexibility? That some thought maybe the Steelers were even looking at him at center.
He could get you.
That was a stretch, but
he could get you out of a pinch at center. But he played left tackle. But he can play anywhere else. A lot of scouts have him as a guard, but I think that he's just fine to go play right tackle of the NFL.
Yeah.
Big, sturdy, good pass protector, better run blocker. I think that fits well for what the
So
Steelers can
I
do.
always get those two mixed up. I would love
Yeah.
that pick if the Steelers got the pick of the tackle from Oregon.
Yeah,
I just don't think it's going to happen.
I think they'd have to
Um,
move up for him, but I wouldn't put
but
anything past him.
I
To
would
do
love
that.
it if he was there. If he's there, I would take him.
Yeah.
What gets really tricky is there's another player that I think that if he's there, the Steelers would take him. But last year I thought if Joey Porter Jr. was there, they would take him. Then
Right.
they traded up, and Joey Porter Jr. was there where they would have picked, and they got him anyway. So why even rehash that? Because another player I think that would be really difficult for them to pass on is Quinyon Mitchell.
Yes.
I don't think he's going to be there. I don't think they would move up for him. But if he's there, I don't know that they would let that pass by. If both of those guys are there, the tackle from Oregon and the cornerback from Toledo, that would be real interesting to see which one they would go with. I have a feeling neither one of them are going to be there. I think Mitchell could go like in the early team, like 11 or 12 range. So I'm going to go. I'm going to go with Graham Barton. I'll go with Graham Barton.
Okay. Yeah.
It's between him and Mims are the ones that I'm really not sure about. And people that are like, oh, they drafted a center too high. No, if it's the guy you want and you really like him and you take him because you're in love with him. And if you're absolutely in love with him, I'm not going to argue with it.
Yeah, I agree. Graham Barton was going to be the guy I picked, and then I was like, let's have a little fun. Let's have a little fun. Let's see if we can.
Yeah. No, I would love that pick if they could get. I still can't remember his last name. It started with an F. He's from Oregon State.
Yeah.
So
and you get we didn't even talk about Olaf Fashanu, the other F tackle.
Oh yeah. Well, he's another one that he's one that I think you run to the podium if he's still there.
Penn State tackle, yeah. He can probably play either side, although he's more natural on the left. So I don't know. That's if he's there and the more natural right tackles aren't, I would be very, very interested to see if the Steelers would go that route, thinking of Broderick Jones as a left tackle too.
Well, here's the deal with Broderick Jones. Broderick Jones is your best tackle, whichever side you put him on right now.
Yeah.
Why is he on the right side? Because their next best option is better on the left side, which tells me I've been saying this for a very long time. I feel what makes an offensive lineman an over-the-top good lineman is that you can play more than one position, especially meaning you could play both sides of what you play. I really people that say, oh, you really should hone in on that. I don't. And like I said about with Broderick Jones, if he's still on the right side, even for another full season, even though the plan is to get him to left, that's not terrible because he still needs to develop his pass protection, which could come better on the right side. Although I think he played way better at left tackle against the Ravens in his first game than he did it all on the right side, as good as he did on the right side. He had his moments. He was a rookie, a raw rookie, so he had his moments. He was raw. He was always. That's what the Steelers knew they were getting. If he wasn't raw with his traits, he'd have been a top 5 pick. So
true.
That's what they were getting. But if you have two tackles and Broderick Jones can play either side, but you have another tackle that's as good as or better than Broderick Jones, then I'm fine with Broderick Jones staying at right tackle.
Yeah.
So
I would be too. But you would definitely have to get and
I don't think the Steelers are going to get that this year unless they go make another move. And making another move for a tackle in the first round 2 years in a row, that's tough to stomach, but they could still do it.
They could. We'll see. We will see. Let's go to Matt Smith. If the top center and top tackle are available at pick 20, which do you prefer? We kind of talked about this a little bit, but not like against each other. So say Mims and Barton are there at 20. Dave, who are you taking of the two?
Well, Mims isn't the top tackle. You're talking, is Joe Alt there? If you're really talking top tackle, I mean, if you're talking top tackle, you're talking.
If Joe Alt's there,
top projected at 20. That's where it gets tricky.
Yeah, that's what I was going with. But.
Yeah, if it's because this is another thing I've said about. I hate people talking about position ranking, especially the way they used to at our former site. I'll just leave it there. Someone's like, "Oh, why are you taking the 4th best tackle when you could have the best something else?" I'm like, if you use that philosophy of you want the best, I mean, saying you got the best player at a position only makes you feel good about the pick after the fact.
Yeah.
Because my goodness, if you do that philosophy, then you should be drafting the first best punter over the second best quarterback. That makes no sense. It's not about how well they rank in their position. It's how well they rank overall. Overall. If the sixth best tackle is way better than your top ranked center, then you take the sixth best tackle. That's just what you do. So it really comes down to your overall board and what the Steelers say. Don't go out of your way reaching for a position of need. But at the same time, if the Steelers are like, we are getting our next center of the future in this draft, if they go with the center at pick 20, I'm fine with that. If that's if they've made the decision that that's the way they're going to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I would, excuse me, I would probably take, like in my original suggestion, I would probably take Mims over Barton in the first round.
Yeah, probably.
And figure it out later at center. I think you could do that and still get a guy who can, a guy who could start for you day one, but maybe you would
day one Steelers, which is week 4.
Yeah, true.
Day one rookie starter for the Steelers means week 4. Just where
if they don't take a center, if they don't take a center in the first round, I think you would have to expect Brian Allen gets signed or somebody gets signed to handle that. But if they take Zach Frazier in the second round or something like that, and they feel that he's a guy that can start day one, then they may forego that.
Here's what's interesting. I think Graham Barton is considered a first round caliber player.
100%.
I think Zach Frazier is considered a second round caliber player.
Yes.
But yet I think Zach Frazier is more ready to start than Graham Barton. Graham Barton hasn't played center for 3 years.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that Graham Barton doesn't have a higher ceiling. It doesn't mean he wouldn't be a better center, but that doesn't mean that he'd be ready to start right away. I think Frazier would be ready to start sooner, personally. Sure. That's just me. But my thoughts behind tackle, I've said it a bunch. I'll continue to say it. Go big or go home. If you're not taking an offensive tackle in one of your first 2 picks, and I'm fine if they don't even address it at all. The Steelers, you need to upgrade if you're over one of the 2 tackles that you have, if you know what I mean, when it comes to Dan Moore. People that think, oh, well, you could take anyone at any time and upgrade Dan Moore. You're just showing that you don't pay attention to the offensive line. He's not as bad as what you think, but he's still not good enough. He does need to be upgraded. Yeah. But if the Steelers are going to draft another player, remember, Broderick Jones, first round pick. Dan Moore, 4th round pick. The Steelers don't need another Dan Moore. They need another Broderick Jones. So to me, if you're not addressing it in one of your first couple picks, or you get a steal in the 3rd round, to me, why bother? Because you might not be upgrading.
Yeah, and then you've got guys that you feel probably comfortable as your swing tackle this year, as somebody who can step in.
They really like Dylan Cook. They really do.
Sure,
even though
you got
they kept him on the 53 all season. They did, even though he didn't dress.
Inactive, but hey, he was a guy that they felt comfortable putting out there in a pinch if they had to, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring up a fun question here from Danny Owens Jr. because I say fun because I have no idea. This year's draft is heavy in certain positions. What about next year? Danny, I'm kind of a draft guy, but it's only for this year's draft. And Dave, I don't know about you.
I'm not a draft guy. I don't even know what positions are overly heavy this year. I mean, I do, but only because other people have told me. Why would I pay one bit of attention to they could get next year? I know sometimes you get that about quarterback because people will be talking about when the Steelers drafted Kenny Pickett. They're like, this is such a weak quarterback class. The next class will be even better. So that's one position that sometimes you think about it, but beyond that, I have no clue.
I was going to say, all I know is that the quarterbacks aren't supposed to be as good. And that's it.
I couldn't have even told you that. So
so
the Steelers aren't interested in the quarterback right now, so that's why I didn't know.
Correct. Yeah. So it's let's get through this one. Let's get through this one through another season. We'll get back to you, Danny. Next
that's
year.
Like I don't like to talk about the draft before the season's over.
Right. Yeah.
But that's just me because I'm like, can we enjoy this season?
Yeah. It's over all too soon all the time.
Yes.
So Okay, let's get back to a little bit of wide receiver talk before we close out the show. Ted Jones asked an interesting question. If the Steelers get Ayuk, I don't think they will bring back GP. Just a thought. Do you see two big contract wide receivers on this team, or are the Steelers a one big contract wide receiver team, as they've proven to be in the past?
With the current GM, you don't have the data to draw the conclusion. If this was still Kevin Colbert, I would say yeah. But if this was still Kevin Colbert, we wouldn't have half the moves that we've had. So that's really a great question. That it's merely speculation. My thing is there room? People are wondering, if Russell Wilson's your quarterback, do you have room for an Ayuk and a George Pickens in the same offense? Or are they two guys that are too similar that Wilson doesn't need more than one of those guys?
Yeah,
I've heard that speculation. I don't know if that's true or not. I just know Brandon Ayuk's numbers. I couldn't tell you where he lines up the most. I couldn't tell you how he's utilized. I couldn't tell you if him and Pickens play the same position or opposite positions that would be a complement to each other. Okay. Those aren't things that I would break down until he becomes a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Yeah. Completely different receivers based on usage in the past, and stylistically, I would say too. Now, they both led the league last year in yards per reception. George Pickens was number 1. Ayuk was number 2 in that regard. But that had a lot to do with the 49ers offense and how they drive the ball down the field. Ayuk is one of these separator type receivers, but he's got a big enough body and great arm length to be able to snag those contested catches. So he has some contested catchability, but he's more of a separator, more of a Z receiver than Pickens is, for sure. So they would complement each other well. In an
I'm
Arthur
saving
Smith offense,
most
though,
of my words on the subject until Ayuk would actually be with the Steelers.
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
Because that could be a whole lot of talk for nothing that ever happened.
For a whole lot of nothing. Yeah. That's very true. And with my voice the way it is, maybe I should be thinking the same way.
I kind of learned to do the same thing with Tyler Boyd.
Yeah.
Although I still have that article written and ready to go.
Ready to go. It's still there. It's still there. Several updates needed, probably, if it actually.
Oh yeah, that's a pretty good point. Yeah, I'd probably have to update that one a little bit.
Right on. Okay, Robert Ellison. There's been some talk about the Steelers maybe trying to trade for T. Higgins. That just doesn't make sense to me, Dave.
No.
Yeah. So Robert
I still
Ellison,
can't believe they ever traded with the Ravens.
Yeah.
Chris Wormley. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. How did you do that? That was Mike Tomlin saying, "Hey, Chris, they don't like you. We do. Let's go beat them up 2 times a year."
Miles Boykin was another one that they technically traded for. Yeah.
This would never happen.
Don't see that one
to me. Yeah.
I don't know. I would never say never, but never.
Well, with the capital you'd expect the Steelers to have to give up.
Yeah.
Are the Steelers giving their second round pick to the Bengals? I don't think so.
No.
Even for T. Higgins, first round pick is probably what they would ask for anyway. Yeah. So I don't see that one happening.
The reports came out today that he's fine playing one more year with them, and the Bengals basically are saying we're not shopping him.
Yeah. Very true. Hey, that's the end of our questions in the chat. Well, here's one more. JJ52 says, who are your favorite wide receivers this draft that you think the Steelers have a chance at getting? I'll open this one up with I'm going to go second round picks or day 2 picks, more or less, because I don't think they go there in round 1. I could be wrong, but I'm going to say Roman Wilson, Xavier Legette. Those are 2 guys that I really like that I think they could go after. I love Jalen Polk out of Washington, one of the running mates of Rome Odunze. Jalen McMillan I like out of there as well. But Jalen Polk is a fantastic Z receiver, big-bodied guy, can do everything well. Not extremely good at any one thing, but can do everything well. So he's just a well-rounded receiver. I like him a lot. I think that he could be somebody that they target on day 2 if they haven't addressed it earlier or if they haven't made a trade. Anybody that you like, Dave, that you've heard talk about?
Well, because I know so much about players beyond the first round.
Yes, everybody.
Who's the big yak guy? The Mac Yak, right? Isn't it a
Yeah.
Malachi?
Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky.
Corley.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the Mac, right? Western Kentucky.
Yep. I think so.
I thought so.
I think so.
Now is he a round 2 or round 3 guy?
Some scouts have him in round 3, but I would say he's a late round 2 guy. Yeah.
Gotcha. That's what I was thinking too. That's someone that, and the Steelers brought him in for a visit, didn't they?
They did. Yep.
See, that's
They
a
brought
guy
in
that I
him.
could see them doing. If
Yep.
especially if he's still there with the first time they drafted the 3rd round, then I don't see them passing him by if they hadn't picked the receiver yet.
Sure.
But
Legette's the one that really piques my interest because I think they could see him as kind of a possession type receiver, but he's got elite speed as well. This guy's 6'1" and 230 pounds almost. And he runs a 4.3 40. So he's lightning quick, but really long arms, really good at the catch point too. He just is one of these 5th-year seniors that was only good his 5th year. So who that plays into it, and who knows how that'll go. But yeah, so there's a lot of receivers. It should be the point of this question. A lot of receivers that the Steelers can get in the building that I think would be upgrades on what they have behind George Pickens currently. So never fear, Steelers fans. The team has a good crop to choose from to get in this building. If they don't upgrade it before the draft comes, they will certainly be able to on draft weekend. Dave, anything you got coming up? Podcasts, writings, articles, what you got?
Oh yeah, of course. I've always got something at steelcurtainnetwork.com. Let's see. Tomorrow I've had it's my next to last mock draft Monday, where I outline a different player from a mock draft. I keep track of them. I won't repeat. So it's getting tough to find someone. I'll tease a little bit. Tomorrow morning's is a cornerback, one that I wasn't expecting. That I found actually in a couple different mocks. So that's why I went ahead and went with that one. And I'm hoping that I still have one more name I can squeeze in next week that someone will mock to the Steelers, because so many places I look, it's either Graham Barton or Mims, who I covered for. I mean, my goodness, Mims was the first one I did. Just with the various mock drafts. So I got that coming. Tomorrow, whatever happened to the draft class of series that I'm doing continues. It started last week, where I started with Cam Hayward's class in 2011. So it was 11, 12, and 13 were last week. So this week, every day in the afternoon, you'll see another one, unless we have news that comes in and we have to bump it to the next day.
Sure.
So I'm pretty sure it's 20. What happened to the draft class of 2014? I should have another salary cap update coming out later, a little bit later in the week. I already got a couple articles tomorrow. Tuesday night, you don't want to miss this. Tuesday night is the annual Skull Bro Show live mock draft, where we do the simulator. Okay. Big Bro hates it, but I make him do it. Where we pick all the picks for the Steelers, and it's basically the live chat decides. We try to steer them in a certain direction at times to say what's available, but that one's always a lot of fun. Hopefully we can get through that in the allotted time. Stat Geek this week. It was a topic I was getting ready to do last week, and then I had something else that what I was doing just kind of rolled over into its whole show, and that is between what the Steelers lost and what they've gained this year, numbers wise. Where are their deficiencies? Where are they really lacking that they really haven't replaced what they've lost with what they've gained? Looking at that more ahead of the draft, so that should be fun on Thursday morning. And yeah, that should be enough. So I have a lot going on. I always have a lot going on.
Right on. Yeah, man, you do. And one of the best reads at steelcurtainnetwork.com is Dave Schofield anytime he gets something out there. I'm still working on my Players of Interest series. I've got 3 more of those coming out before the draft, and then I'll have a couple mocks coming out too. One for the Steelers, one for the entire first round on fansfirstsports.com. So check that one out too and see how it all plays out. But looking forward to the draft. Dave, we probably won't have you on this show again until the draft. So next time we have you on, we'll have a lot to talk about for
actual
draft
Steelers players. Yay!
Yes, exactly. So stay tuned to the Steel Curtain Network for all of your Pittsburgh Steelers news, notes, and needs. We'll be back next time here on the Steelers Sunday night Q&A. Everybody have a good night.